Okay, welcome everyone. With me today is Arman Rafai, BitNation ambassador and one of the men on BitNation's Refugee Emergency Response Development Team. Arman, welcome to All Hazards, All Agencies.
Thank you for having me. It's actually quite pleasant to be able to speak to someone from Australia. I usually do my conversations in Europe, so thank you for having me.
Fantastic, Armin. The blockchain technology behind BitNation is a very, very exciting development with application capabilities that go far beyond emergency management. Would you just like to explain a bit more about them for us?
Sure. Well, pretty much the fundamental structure of the blockchain allows for an individual or any group to be able to run certain functions on it without being interrupted, and it's distributed throughout the entire network. So naturally what BitNation really does is take that set of tools and apply it from a governance perspective. So, you can have things like land registration, birth certificates, you can have, for example, business registrations, and things like that usually would go to the government to finalize and record, run through the blockchain. And the beautiful thing about it is that once it's recorded onto the blockchain, it cannot be tampered with, and it allows you to have a set of records that you can use to give you grants in other aspects of your life. And in the court of law, actually, the blockchain is accepted as a method of registration because it follows the structures or the set of details that they require from a registration. So that's, I guess, the fundamental foundation behind using the blockchain from a governance perspective.
Enough from there. Thanks, Marty. Can you tell me how the idea to use BitNation to try and help the European refugee crisis came about?
Sure. That one was actually quite, it came about quite rapidly because during the refugee crisis, we had a number of different organizations that were trying to reach out and help the refugees in whatever way they could. And we kind of sat down and just within the team, at the time, I think it was about, 2 to 4 of us just developing this website. We wanted to reach out to them and do whatever we could, I guess, in a way to show the world that we don't need to wait for the states. We don't need to wait for countries to give them a bank account or even accept them. An individual, a human being should be accepted from the get-go. So our idea was to provide them with a website where they can reach each other, and that's, I guess, where the mapping function came from. So we wanted to make it open to anyone that can register a path or places that are not particularly safe or places that they have been given refuge where other refugees can go to and receive help. And we also wanted a way where individuals from around the world who felt the need to contribute or donate in some way to be able to log on and just in a very simple way donate to the refugee crisis. And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that it doesn't identify with a certain nation. I mean, if you have donations in US dollars, Australian dollars, or euros, you would have to have that currency and you would have to be within that system. But the beautiful thing with Bitcoin is it goes beyond that limit and it breaks the boundaries of a currency. It allows anyone from around the world to be able to contribute. So, we have members from all around the world who were willing to help and contribute, from small amounts to large amounts. It didn't really matter. What we thought was beautiful was that people were willing to help and contribute. So yeah, the idea came about by being able to kind of, in a way, support them by giving them aid, provide them with a directory or a map. It wasn't the most functional, but it was the best we could do in the short period of time we had, where refugees could connect with each other. We also opened up a chat room where people can post that they're safe, or if other members wanted to contact them, they could. It was done in multiple languages, so it wasn't designated to a certain one. And I guess on top of it all, the most interesting part was the World Citizen ID, which we came together very quickly. And it was mostly done in a way to provide the people with a temporarily, or, I guess in the long term, it could be given as a permanent ID. And, a lot of the refugees that come about, they dispose of their passports because that's how they claim asylum. And to be able to give them an ID system, which we can later introduce a basic income system to, is a very great step forward in going beyond the capabilities of the state. So our idea was, in short, to give them an ID identification, which would also allow them to track other members of the family if they were lost or in a different place, to be able to give them aid, and to be able to also provide them with, a registry or a set of data that they can use to locate each other or find where to go if they're lost.
Wow. There's so many things there that I could, I'd love to expand on.
Sure.
If we take it just as a start, there's three separate areas that we're really looking at for the emergency refugee response. There's the emergency ID, a Bitcoin Visa card, and the refugee aid that goes with it. So if we could just probably just go and examine each one separately.
Sure.
The BitNation emergency ID, your point of people, especially refugees that are coming up that have either lost their ID or deliberately given their ID away, is as a means of claiming refugee status, just compounds their issues, though, especially if they're wanting to open up a bank account or basically to do anything. The first thing that anyone's going to ask you for is your identification. So it's extremely hard for them to be able to do that. So how do they go about getting the ID?
Well, currently it's changed slightly as we approach it in a more global manner. So not just for refugees, for anyone really. At the time for the refugees, it was a way of registering their name as provided, their date of birth, and having some witnesses as to who was there present while they produced this identification system. I mean, to go into it really, the idea comes about by having a look at the current system. So if you're outside the state, it's quite hard, as you mentioned, to have a bank card or to have any sort of thing. I mean, to be able to function within a society or a system that is part of a state nation, you need to be registered as a member of that. So if you're a refugee and you're seeking asylum within a certain nation, the only way for you to access their resources, such as bank or monetary systems or security or housing or any of this stuff, you need to be registered in some way. And until you do, you're kind of like an alien to them. So you can't open a bank account. You simply can't have access to the normal functions or the normal resources of that. So by providing them with a world ID, it kind of breaks that barrier. It shows that you don't need for a state to identify with you or accept you as their member. You can be a sovereign member, or you can be a sovereign citizen of a nation. And this, for me personally, is a liberating effect, because not only does it apply to refugees, but it also applies to people who have been a victim of human trafficking, for example, who don't have an ID and who have been, I guess, devoid of the real identity that they seek. And this is a good way of placing them in a path that gives them the ability to be able to identify with themselves and use that ID to further develop on that. And the hardest part, I guess, out of all of this, which most people would question, is how useful is the ID system? I mean, is the state going to accept it? And the thing is, at the moment, we are in development of a card that follows this European standards, and I believe in other standards as well. And once you have this card, you know, it only takes one nation to accept it and others to follow suit. So in the same manner that we're using the notary function for Estonia and other functions, we can hope to have this identification system applied to other states as well, where you can travel within, for example, small areas such as the Schengen, which is open, with your ID system or with your ID card, and then hopefully a greater radius. So that's from the ID system, and it's quite complicated because it hasn't been really done before. You know, you have the world passport, but this goes into a much more complex approach, because not only are you giving someone an ID, but you're also giving them access to a bank account, access to basic income, and you know it will be some time before all of this comes together. But I think it's a great start to just initiate the movement. So that's from the ID aspect, and let's move on to the other parts, which is the Visa card, for example, which has currently actually turned into a MasterCard. So before I continue, did you want to add any notes to that?
So, once they apply for an emergency ID, that's done online. They're able to take a photo of themselves. It's then basically printed out as something physical that they can have. You could say that it's an ID, maybe not one that is accepted at this point in time from any European state, but the future may, with the future, that may change.
Yes.
So once that comes in, they're then able to apply for a Bitcoin Visa card. So the process that enables them to do that, how does that work?
Okay, just with the ID system, the thing is, in international law, which a lot of countries have agreed to abide by international law, you have the right as an individual to follow any state laws that you wish, to identify with any set of rules that you wish. And this really gives you a liberal standing point that many people forget about. It's called, sorry, it's called, I forget the name, to be honest with you right now, but it pretty much allows an individual to follow any set of rules that they want. And international law, this is a known thing. And for example, when you're in a country and you're part of that state, they assume that you already follow their rules. That's where it gets a bit complicated, I guess, with the laws and everything. So you don't have to abide by international laws, obviously. That's what a lot of states do. That's how they can put up fences and refuse refugees into their country, which is, again, against international laws of freedom of movement. So as an individual, you have freedom of movement. You should be able to enter and leave any country that you want, as long as you're not causing anyone harm. But that's where all the rules and everything comes in afterwards, which limits these international laws. So the World Citizen ID actually abides and follows the international laws, and it allows an individual to have an identification, and later on we'll introduce the ability to choose what laws they like to follow. So this is very important in that sense. From another perspective, which is the law perspective again, the world ID that we produce follows international laws again. So even if they were to go to court, the blockchain registration itself can be given as a proof that they have registered the identification onto the blockchain. Yet we haven't reached that stage yet, though. If it was to go to court, it's from a computer science perspective, it can be proven that this person did register such and such identification. We just have to wait for times to catch up and for this to become normal. So that's from the ID perspective. And moving on to the visa perspective, you don't particularly need the ID to have the visa cards. It's just we are working on a unified system to look at it laterally. You need the ID system, and you need the banking system, and you need the basic income system. But all these act as individual parts at the moment. So you have the Visa cards, which have turned into MasterCard at the moment because the partnering company changed to that. But pretty much with that is a Bitcoin card. Let me even show you if I can. One moment, sorry.
I mean, while you're doing that, I've just got to say, so at the moment they're applying for that. That is done online, and then basically it's just mailed out to them to an address where they can pick it up at a poste restante or at an address somewhere.
Yes. So, like any other prepaid Visa card or MasterCard, it works in the same way. It's not really that different to those. All they've done is take the same system that exists in terms of fiat. So being able to have a prepaid MasterCard, for example, a prepaid Visa card, which you can top up and use in other places. Or if you've traveled, you can even relate to it as the traveler's card, Commonwealth Bank officers, Westpac officers, a few other branches officers, which is just a global card that you can top up with fiat using bank transfers. So think of it as the same system, if you will, but instead of using bank transfers, you use Bitcoin to put into it. So eCoin, or rebranded as Wirex at the moment, took the same system and said, all right, we'll handle the Bitcoin side of things, and the card company can exist as it has been and just deal with the fiat side of things. So yeah, in the same manner, you get the normal MasterCards, and from the back and everything, it's the same card. It functions in the same manner. I can go to an ATM and use it to pull out cash. I can use it online to order things from Amazon or eBay. Now, what you got to understand is, for us, it might not be that big of a deal, but for someone in Morocco whose bank account may not provide them with a Visa card, it is a big deal. For people who have been divided from the existing system that allows them to access Amazon or eBay or such things, it is a very, very big deal. For people who are refugees who don't have access to bank, being able to register themselves and get a bank card is a very big deal. To be able to order things online, to be able to, maybe for your kids order diapers or whatever it is, to be able to just walk to an ATM and just pull out cash. All of these things are very essential parts of life. So in the same manner, the cards that they order through the website has a 1,000, US dollars or European euros or Great British pounds limit on it, depending on which type of card they order. But at the end of the day, if they verify themselves later on, they can bypass this limit to a much greater limit. But I think 1,000 euros in cash and 1,000 euros in spending is quite an adequate amount for a person who doesn't have or is waiting to be accepted by a bank. And at the same time, anyone from around the world can send them Bitcoin. Imagine a refugee, instead of seeking, I wouldn't even imagine how they could seek money otherwise if it wasn't for Bitcoin. I mean, they could say, hi, please help me through bank donations or in cash, but you would have to, it's quite complicated. But as other people in Africa have done, for example, is they can advertise a Bitcoin address directly onto a source, and people can just send it there, and he'll have access to it, or she will have access to it in a matter of minutes. Just have to wait for 3 confirmations, which takes anywhere between half an hour to an hour, and then they can go to an ATM and pull out that cash within an hour. Now, that is a huge difference in being able to send someone money and for them to be able to access it within an hour without much fees. I mean, we're talking about 2% fees. I'm not even sure how much Western Union or other people charge, but it's a much much lower amount in comparison. So these, sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, just to think that if you're a refugee with a family, you're in a country that you don't know, you have absolutely no access to any funding because basically you don't have any money.
Yeah.
The chance to be able to apply online, obtain a credit card that you can use in an ATM to be able to give you substandard cash is a phenomenal ability.
Yeah.
All anyone then needs to do is to be able to, and friends or relatives, if they're trying to support that person in their bid for refugee in a humanitarian setting, then they're able to merely open up a Bitcoin account and then send that amount of Bitcoin to them, and they're going to be able to access the funds through ATM or Amazon. It's a fantastic
idea. Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, it's not just related, I guess, to refugees, but to anyone really. Even if you have your child or your family member overseas and you want to send them money, for me, I would much rather someone send me money through Bitcoin because I can access it very quickly. I know they're not losing a lot of money to fees, and I don't have to go stand in a store between 9 till 5 and be questioned as to why I'm receiving this money and how. I mean, it allows me to access my money in a way that bypasses the normal system, and I quite like that. And if you take it a step further, as you said, with refugees, it's quite remarkable that they're in a foreign country, they don't know what's going on, but they can receive this money in a way that allows them to access it in a normal way. I mean, most people know how to operate an ATM machine. It's just simple as that. I mean, it's using an existing facility to provide new technology, and that for me is a breakthrough, because that's what technology should be. It shouldn't be this foreign thing that you need years to learn how to use and become comfortable in using. It should just kind of slide in and take the place of existing systems, but improve on it. Improve on it in a way that others may have.
When you look at the fees that Western Union charge or that banks charge for cable transfers internationally, it's huge.
Yeah.
So to be able to reduce those fees, if not in their entirety, is just fantastic, and it's a great concept.
Yeah, I think so.
The last section of that is in relation to the refugee aid that BitNation is doing. Could you just expand on that a little bit more as well for me?
Sure. Sorry, just before I continue, what I was speaking about before in international law, and many lawyers know this, and many people are uncomfortable speaking about this, is self-determination. And self-determination is an unwritten axiom that quite logically dictates that everyone has the unilateral ability to choose for themselves what system of governance to be ruled by, including one's own rule of law, which is precisely all that nation and state owes its existence to. So, if you apply the same thing to what we're doing, it kind of may clear out some confusion as to how we may even have a chance from many people's eyes. How do you even have the chance of competing with existing nations? But they follow the same rule. That's what gives them their power. And if you take that same international law and apply it to what we're doing, I mean, the only thing then that separates the states and what we're doing is acceptance by other states. I mean, apart from that, from a legal perspective, the grounds are precisely on the same terms. So, sorry, just wanted to clear that up before moving forward. So your question, sorry, do you mind just repeating your question? Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked.
Sorry, sure. Just the last part on the BitNation website at the moment is in relation to the Bitcoin emergency response, which I believe actually allows people from around the world to contribute to the refugee aid.
Okay. Yeah. So the system in its current form would require manual payovers. So, you know, when we issue out cards to refugees from certain locations in the world, or if they apply for the card, or if we get our ambassadors in certain locations to go out to refugee camps and hand out the cards, their monetary function that people have supplied for would need to be distributed manually. So we would need to find out the Bitcoin address and distribute it. But the grand idea is, which is what Johan from, he's part of BitNation, and he's working on his own independent project, which is the basic income function. He's working on is that tying the ID system to the bank card and then tying it into a basic income system, which is once we receive the aid, we'll be able to distribute the money autonomously throughout the entire network in a decentralized way. So removing, if you will, our ability to choose, yeah, we need to send such and such amount to this person, and etc. For it to become autonomous. So that's the grand idea. But at the moment, you know, if people distribute the funds, we try and send it out through the cards, or we try and make it so the money pays for the cards to go out to pay for, or if refugees apply for the cards, they get the card for free. You know, it's in a very basic format at the moment. But as I said, the grand idea with the basic income should really top that.
From there, so I mean, I take it at the moment this is a fantastic idea, but it's very, very new, and I take it very much in a proof of concept stage at the moment. So where are you in relation to the development and deployment of all this?
Okay. So in terms of deployment and development, we are at a proof of concept, as you mentioned, and at the moment it's all about showing what we can do, rather than applying it in the direct format. I mean, at the moment, we need to build up a community. You know, since the website has been online, I believe it's been just over 6 months. We've had over, I would say, close to 3,000 people apply on it, and that's for me is quite an achievement, because you don't just get a certain group of people. You know, you don't just have anarchists that come on and just like, yeah, screw the system. We just want to join BitNation. I mean, you have people from an academic perspective, you have your regular Joes that just want to come and help, you have mothers and fathers who are concerned with the world, you have professors from universities who teach this stuff, you have lawyers, you have, I mean, if you go through our team directory on bitnation.co, you know, at the top you can go to citizens and then go to the citizen directory and just scroll through the list of people that are there. And if you just have a look at, you know, I don't know, maybe a few pages just to see sort of certain backgrounds. You know, you can see where they're from, you can see their interests, you can see their occupation, and for us, this kind of proves a lot, and it allows us to have a foundation to build upon. So, so yeah, it is a proof of concept, but I think it's doing quite well, because in comparison to many other projects, the proof of concept is very basic. But ours shows the number of people that are involved. We also have, you know, we're trying to provide, I guess, very basic things that government should supply, which is housing, which is work. So we have the Opportunities Network, which is be able to connect people with one another and improve on that. So that's the proof of concept. And the grand idea, again, in this particular department is to build the Pangea app. And the Pangea app is a decentralized, encrypted, and open source platform that we hope to use for dispute resolutions, you know, important chats, and record such things as land registration and everything else as well. You will unify all the services we provide. Now, grand idea with that, again, is to be able to push it out and be able to make it as easy as using, for example, Slack, or I'm not sure if your audience may not be particularly accustomed to Slack, but you can think of it as Facebook chat or something like that, where it's encrypted, it's decentralized, it's open source. So it's not like Facebook where the code is closed and you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and your chat conversations are being sold to marketing companies and such. So once you provide a encrypted way of dealing with that, you create a completely different game, and this hasn't been done before. So there is a lot of testing that we need to do. There's a lot of foundation we need to put into place, and there's a lot of conversations to be had. And we hope through our work we can kind of achieve that. And at the moment, if you go through the website again for the proof of concept, we have embassies, and the embassies are locations around the world who have offered the citizens a place to work from or to even stay at. So think of it as the Airbnb of BitNation. And then we have allies as well, so partners who can come and align themselves with BitNations and further develop with us, or if they have an interest, they can add their services to BitNation and offer it through us, which has been the case, for example, with the Bitcoin debit cards or the Visa cards, if you will, which is a service we don't provide ourselves, but we align ourselves with someone that is doing a very good job at that, and we kind of push our members and our users through that to be able to use their systems. So it's a mutually beneficial function. But again, yeah, it's in very basic format. I mean, nothing like this has been done before, and it will be quite some time before we can actually see some tangible results in the sense of global scale. But I think for the time being, we're doing pretty well.
I'd say you're doing absolutely fantastically so far for something that's only been going for 6 months. There's some incredible ideas that have come out of this. A few, and one thing I love about this is the decentralized nature of it. I'm a huge fan of decentralized systems and how they are able to be incorporated into especially emergency management. A couple of questions I'd just like to ask you, though, in relation to this. The technology involves in this is such that you need the internet, you need to be able to access the internet, and you need to have the knowledge to be able to use the internet to do it. Have any of the humanitarian agencies assisted with the groups of people that may not have access to internet capabilities to be able to look at going down the BitNation path?
Absolutely. I mean, just before I move to this, I just want to say something in relation to BitNation. They say something like 90% or 90% plus of startups fail, and the ones that do succeed and move forward have something to offer that people, I guess, really needed at that time. In the same manner, you can look at BitNation as setting alight something that hasn't been done before. And the idea isn't to really be the one and only provider of such services. We want other people to follow lead, and we want them to compete with us. And the end result should be competing governance rather than a one system fits all model that we have at the moment, which is top down model. So it's not so much that we will conquer all through BitNation. We want to see other forms of it. We want to see other people do the same thing. And just to get the idea across that governments should compete in the same way that, for example, IBM competes with Dell and Dell competes with HP. And when you go into a shop to buy a laptop, you have those choices. Why shouldn't you have the same choices with governments? Why should it be this is your government for the next 4 years, deal with it, pop up? No one ever says only Apple is able to sell mobile phones for the next 4 years and then hopefully maybe Google can have a go. No, you have that freedom of choice. And once you introduce competition, I think, to governance, it should really push them to do their best to actually do well, rather than oh, we're in power for the next 4 years, we can do whatever we want. So I just wanted to put that across.
I mean, I could talk to you for a long time on these concepts. These are fantastic. One thing I did want to ask, and this is the law enforcement side that's coming out with me.
Yeah.
The potential for this to be used for money laundering, has it?
Yeah.
That's more the Bitcoin side of it. Has this been addressed at all?
Yeah. A lot of people ask these questions, and I can really understand. I mean, I would be concerned as well. As a parent, as an individual, or from any other perspective, I can be concerned. This for me is a moral debate that there's no real answer to it. I mean, I can see that the bricks, for example, used in the pillar behind you were used to form the foundation to the house, so the roof doesn't collapse down. But you can take that same piece of brick and someone could use it in violence to hurt someone. They can smack them across the head. But this never comes into conversation. Should we make bricks because someone out there can use it to hurt others with it? I know it's a weird analogy, but in the same way, there are many things out there that can be used for bad. I mean, I could use my table to hurt someone. I can use many things around me to hurt someone. But this should never limit the technology. I mean, it should come down to a point where groups of individuals should sit down and share their concerns. But I don't ever believe it should be the limitation or cause. And bringing it back to money laundering, it is actually known as a fact that most of the money that gets laundered is done in fiat. And in a lot of cases, even with terrorist how do you say, aid, I guess, with people that support and, send money to terrorists, it's always done in US dollars. But no one ever sits down and says, should we limit US dollars? Should we do something about it? But I find it concerning that, the attention sound like the Bitcoin is like, it can be used for money laundering, but money laundering has been around since money has been around. And, Bitcoin doesn't particularly make it any easier. I mean, most people don't want Bitcoin. You don't want. Most people wouldn't even want it. So yeah, it can be used for it, I guess. But most people use cash anyways. I mean, cash has been the known factor for buying weapons or many other legal things, rather than Bitcoins or anything like that. I mean, most people want cash. That's from that aspect, and. It comes down to, I guess, you have the dark web, you have, the Silk Road, and where you can buy Bitcoins, and then people come up with questions or queries like, what if it supports child pornography and things like that? And yes, it can be done, but there's also, fraud credit cards that can be used for the same thing. There's a lot of other ways for these people to get to where they want to. If you ban Bitcoin because it can be used for those things, it's not going to end. That comes down to society and educating and finding out these people in different means and fighting it from the roots up, rather than looking at a branch and going, this branch may have caused the sickness to the tree. But that's never the case. So that's from my perspective. It comes down to personal moral values and what you need to do with it. Back to the other aspect, I mean, I think it's called Sector B or something like that, which is sorry, if you give me one moment, I can just get it off so I can tell you exactly where it is. This goes back to the aspect that you said, there are many people out there that don't have access to the internet or the facilities that will give them the ability to function within the Bitcoin network. And a lot of people have been working in this. And one of the things that we need to consider is that M-Pesa, which is mobile Pesa, I think in African means money. So it's mobile money, which many people may not be familiar with. But in some parts of Africa, they have been using phone credit to pay for stuff for a very long time. I mean, if you relate it down to using your phone and the credit on it to pay for stuff, which Bitcoin is very closely related to, they're actually much more educated on the topic than we are. I mean, we're so used to pulling out our cards and cash. They actually use phone credit to buy stuff. You go to a shop and they say they cost this much, and use your phone credit as a way of paying for these things. So So if you introduce Bitcoin to these people, it's not going to be challenging at all. I mean, it's something that they've done for a very long time. The only issue then becomes providing them with the internet facilities, and setting up towers and stuff is really not that hard. I mean, you know, the infrastructure to provide a community with the internet, it's not that hard. And I believe last time I spoke to someone that they are looking for a way to be able to use and transfer Bitcoin without having a live connection. And that's another great thing. Moving back to the sector, I just want to make sure I cover it. Here we go. So it's called System D economy, and the System D economy is 2 billion unbanked adults from around the world. 80% of the world population lives in frontier and emerging markets. If System D were an independent nation, united in a single political structure, call it the United Street Sellers, for example, it would be an economic superpower, the second largest economy in the world. The United States with a GDP of 14 trillion is numero uno, which is number one. So after US's 14 trillion, System D economy is at 10 trillion. So these are people that don't even have access to a banking account. So imagine suddenly these people have access. Let's say even 10% of them have access. I mean, you're looking at a great portion of the world that have never had the opportunity to kind of come into the system and make money and have business and be able to transfer and do all these other things that we do. I mean, we're talking about the second largest economy in the world that doesn't, as a united, mind you, but doesn't have even access to banking facilities. So the effect that would have on a global scale is something we don't even know. So for me, anything to kind of push that idea forward is worth it. And Bitcoin was never made, in my opinion anyways, or maybe applying my own thoughts to this, Bitcoin was never made to make my life or your life easier. Obviously it does, but it's more about the people that have never had access to banking facilities, that banks have never gone into their regions and set up a service center or set up facilities for them to use it. So this is a way of saying, look, we don't need your help. We've got to figure it out. We just need to set up independent towers. And if you cross-examine that with the ability for people to have meshing networks. So in Greece, actually, meshing networks is where a group of people using antennas provide internet to that particular region without needing an internet service provider. And in a lot of regions, it's actually much quicker and much more stable than what the private companies are providing. Now, if you take the same thing and apply it in a different region, you suddenly have peer-to-peer internet, which means you don't actually need the providers to give you that access. And I think that these are all game-changing stuff. I mean, that one has been done in Greece. From what I can remember, the meshing in Greece, there it is, privately run meshes would deny the NSA and other government intelligence agencies around the world this access point to data, and up to 30 times faster than local telecom providers in Greece, this particular case was. So you can suddenly see a system where, it's not so much like a battle, stuff the system, overpower them or anything, but it's really a way to show people that they have another choice, that they don't need to wait until the internet service providers give them a stable connection. That people coming together can do much more amazing things than waiting for private companies to step into that. And it's not like in a way of saying we don't need them, but it's in a way saying, the power of peer-to-peer for me is very, very powerful. And it's a wake-up call, I guess, for a lot of people.
I mean, thank you very much for this amazing insight into what is a potential solution for a growing problem that there are very few answers for at this point. The concepts that you've touched on span well beyond humanitarian and emergency management. And the potential here for this type of ideas is thinking in the future. And I just want to say I think it's great that we've got Aussies, even though they're living in Europe at the moment, and, involved in these types of things. And I want to thank you very, very much for taking time for participating with this interview. And I hope in a few years' time, we might be able to do another one and see where we are down the track.
For sure. Thank you so much, Mark. As I said, I mean, you know, we're still in the early days. We haven't even reached the adoption rate that a beginner would need to. You know, we're still in the shadows. By the time these stuff will come out, I mean, one of the great speakers in Bitcoin, just to sign off with this, said that with the internet, when the internet was introduced, no one could have imagined Facebook, no one could have imagined Gmail or Skype or all these applications that we have now. So in the same manner, at the moment, no one can really predict what this technology, blockchain technology and its adoption can do, and what sort of tools will come out. I mean, things will come out that we can't even imagine. Just as artificial intelligence comes out, and you know, we have self-driving cars. I couldn't have thought about this stuff, you know. So it's really early, and you know, I'm really excited to see what else will come out, and I'm sure people will really see how, for example, Airbnb, which relies on peer-to-peer, overpowers hotels. And this is a very small example, but if you apply the same peer-to-peer mentality, I think we're going to see some really amazing stuff, and I really look forward to it. But yeah, thank you so much for speaking with me, and it's been a pleasure, and I'm always happy to speak about this stuff. And I hope someone out there learns from this and, you know, passes the information along and gets them curious enough to look into it more. But yeah, cheers. Thank you so much.
Not a problem, Amin. Thanks for all your help, and have a great day, mate.
Cheers.